Righty, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Um, Tonight we are here welcoming Dr. Joshua Weiss to our presentation. So thank you all for joining us. Just a few tips before we get started. This presentation is going to be recorded, and it is something that will be shared with you via email tomorrow. So just sit back and enjoy the presentation. And there also is a question box that you can utilize throughout the presentation with any questions or any comments, and we will get to those at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Bay Path University's Program Director of our Master of Science in Leadership and Negotiation, Dr. Joshua Weiss.
Thank you, Sam. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this Hot Topic webinar. I'm really excited and very grateful to our panelists for joining tonight and to tell us a little bit about a terrific organization called She Can. And I'm sure you all know that today is Martin Luther King Day, and I thought that perhaps it would be appropriate to start with a quote that I've always liked and felt as if leaders ought to really embrace. And the quote goes, "Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be." That is the interrelated structure of reality. And I think the best leaders really embrace that idea and understand the relationship between themselves and those that are around them. And I'm a firm believer that leadership is sort of a team sport, that it's something you do, but it's not something you do alone. And in order to be a great leader, you are only as good as all of those around you, and how you work with them and empower them and treat them is critical. And I'm sure you're going to hear a lot about that tonight from our terrific panelists. And in fact, what I would like to do is ask our panelists, I'm going to go across my screen based on the folks in front of me in that way, and ask you one at a time to perhaps just share a brief word about your background and your role with She Can and how you came to that. So maybe I'll start with Barbara, please, if you would.
Sure. Hi, thanks Josh for having us. I'm the founder and executive director of She Can. So my role really is to provide the vision as well as spearhead all the departments within the organization. I started the organization in 2011 after an extensive career in advertising and then having my own consulting market research consulting firm.
Great. Terrific. Well, thank you so much. Pai Pai, how about you?
Thank you. So I am one of the Cambodian scholar, one of the She Can Cambodian scholar, and I am currently a sophomore. I go to Dartmouth, and I was born and raised in Battambang province in the northwest of Cambodia. And I grew up with a single mother who's a wonderful leader, and she is definitely my role model and the reason that I'm here today.
Oh, great. Terrific. And Karen?
Hi, I'm Karen Hanrahan. I am a human rights lawyer by training and have spent a good chunk of my career working around the world, helping to empower, protect, and support women and girls across many continents. More recently, I worked for Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in the Obama administration as a Deputy Assistant Secretary for Democracy and Human Rights, among other things. And I came to She Can as a mentor. And Barb recruited me to be a mentor with an exceptional group of women. I think there are 5 of us, and we are Pai Pai's mentor. And we have built a wonderful group of support and fun around Pai Pai, I hope.
Great. So Barbara, maybe for those folks who are not on the call who don't really know a lot about She Can, I wonder if you mentioned that you began this over a decade ago, and if you could maybe tell us a little bit about what is it that you were really trying to accomplish, why did you choose to do this, and how do you perhaps go about this kind of work?
Yeah. So I had a full career, and I realized that I really wanted to be doing something that where I was giving back, and also that would follow me as I, became someone my age and into retirement, that I felt really good about. I was volunteering in Rwanda, kind of still working but looking for something, and an amazing woman that I was mentoring, she and her daughter asked me to help her win a scholarship, and she ended up with what I thought was going to be an evening in my hotel room giving her some advice on how to fill out the Common App became, when my network heard about it, we all rose up and wanted to help her. She ended up at Bucknell, and then I ended up really basically returning to Rwanda to expand on this idea, and identified 7 women to be in the program and matched them with 1 mentor, and then 4 of those young women won a full scholarship. So we were sort of off and running. I think you were asking what's it all about being in She Can? Was that your next question, Josh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're an organization that's dedicated to building female leadership. And I've always been very passionate about women's role and helping to support women, and the fact that, women are held back systemically all over the globe. So at our heart, we're about women's leadership. We're not an education organization, we're a women's leadership organization. Our mission is to build female leadership. But we believe that one of the main reasons why women are held back, while there's many reasons, and unraveling that is hard, but one of the main reasons is that they lack the opportunity to get the kind of support that they need, or background that they need. And so education is the biggest pillar of the organization. We basically identify low opportunity women in post-conflict countries by going to the country and vetting them extensively. And then, as Karen mentioned, matching each one with a team of 5 amazing mentors. They're mostly women, but we have some men. And then that team, along with my team at She Can, helps them apply for and win a college scholarship. So we have scholars like Pi's at Dartmouth. We have scholars at Northwestern, at Lafayette, Gettysburg, Beloit. We actually have a total of 35 colleges that support our scholars, and 12 of them have signed ongoing contracts with us. They hold a scholarship for one of our scholars every year. The way it all works is the colleges support the tuition, room and board, and then the organization funds everything around that. A low opportunity scholar, it's really expensive, who may not have the parental or family structure to send them to college. We provide everything that they need, from their dorm supplies to their computer to their phone, but everything that a young woman needs in order to thrive in college. And then we also wrap her with the support that she needs to become a leader, because, like I said, we're a leadership organization. So we also provide a lot of leadership webinars, enculturation webinars, formal leadership training, leadership summit. We just finished one, as we were talking about earlier, Josh, and also career support. We don't want to just say, okay, go home and be a leader. We help them with pathways home in various ways.
So maybe I'm curious about the mentor role that you mentioned, that there are 5 mentors. Is there 5 mentors per person? Okay. And so what are the kinds of things that the mentors do? And maybe, Karen, that's also a place where you could jump in here a little bit.
Perfect.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, that was directed to you.
Josh was asking, what do the mentors do? And he kind of invited you to.
But I didn't know if you were going to take a crack at that. Let me tell you what the mentors do.
There you go.
I am so fortunate to be a part of this extraordinary group of 5 women who have been, have the opportunity to come together to support Pi Pi, initially to get into a university, to apply to university, and to apply for financial aid. And so, we start early on talking with Pi Pi about her hopes and her dreams, and how she envisions her life playing out, and what she wants to bring back to Cambodia as a leader. How does she want to change the world? So we spent a lot of time talking with Pi Pi about that. There are many universities in the United States that are part of this program, and a growing number, again, because it's proven to be so effective. And it's one of the reasons that it's so extraordinary is because Barb and her team go through this very rigorous process to interview and learn about the girls in these young women in these countries, and to really pick, select people who are going to succeed. And so Pi Pi is clearly one of those future leaders. And so we had the opportunity to help her get into a school, choose a school, apply to schools, including financial aid. I was the finance advisor. We had others who were helped on the application, others with the essay. Every mentor plays a different role, which is very helpful because every mentor also has many other things in their lives. These are already women who are leaders themselves, coming together to build this pipeline of young women leadership from countries that SheCan has selected. So once they get into school, we help Pi Pi understand what she's about to get into, how to prepare. I can say that with Pi Pi, she didn't need a lot of help. She is an incredible researcher. She's proactive. She's on top of everything. That said, there's a lot to know about America and about American universities before you show up. So, most of our mentor group showed up in Boston to welcome Pi Pi and help her shop for her dorm room and prepare to enter school. And then for this next year, all of us shift roles a little bit. A mentor focused on working with Pi Pi on her health and well-being, others still on finances, others on academics. So everyone still plays a particular defined role. And overall, our experience, Pi Pi is just an incredible young woman, and we're lucky. We all benefit from being part of this group.
That's great. So Pi Pi, I want to come to you in a second, but Barbara, I want to ask you one quick thing, which is, so how do you find people like Pi Pi? What's the process? Because it's not necessarily an easy thing, right? To locate promising young women who can make a difference in the world.
Yeah, and it's something I think we've really spent a lot of time perfecting over the 12 years. And like I said, I used to have a market research consultancy. And so we had to find these hard to find, respondents for focus groups and things. So I think I brought a sense of, understanding how to do that. And what we do is we have a very rigorous process. A team of 8 of us go to the country for 2 weeks, and it's usually 3 staff and 5 mentors. And we start with an online application that's been out for about 3 months. And then we usually get about 200 in each country. We narrow that down to 60, and then the team arrives and we interview for 2 days. Then we do focus groups with a narrowed group, little cafe chats to hear, how they think. And then they have to give a speech. So we give them a weekend, and then we visit them in their home. Pi Pi, you remember all this, right? And then we make our final selection. And then they're still just a candidate. and then they have to take our SAT class and English language class in order to pass the exams, the entrance exams. And then a couple months into, oh, they have to do a community service project, and then we make our final selection. Because
Wow.
essentially, you know, we have, it's often been called the golden ticket. We have a complete full scholarship with every single cost that you need to go to school. And we find the very top, we think 5 to 8 scholars in each country. And then we, you know, provide them with everything that they need to return home and become a leader. So we are very careful about who we pick, and we only want the top girls.
Right. And you're working primarily in countries that have been through conflict. Are they at different stages of conflict, or is it not solely that?
You know, it's totally different stages. I don't think I made clear our country. So I started it in Rwanda. We no longer recruit more scholars. We have 35 graduates from Rwanda, but there's a lot of organizations that do what we do in Rwanda. And so a couple years after we started in Rwanda, we expanded into Cambodia, and we now have about over 40, I think, scholars. Then we expanded into Liberia, where we have about 20, and then we expanded into Guatemala, which is our newest country, and we just recruited our 3rd class. I think we have about 18 young women from Guatemala. So all different, you know, as you can tell, all post-conflict and different kinds of conflict and different stages of coming out of that, and differences in whether they're democracy or females are, you know, acclaimed there as leaders or not. All of them have their own challenges.
Wow, that's really impressive and really interesting. Pai, so I'd love to hear your story about how you got here and how you got to this place. I'm sure it's probably not where you expected to be as you were up. So please tell us.
Well, my story began when my mom made this big decision to leave her family and everything that she's familiar with. Because I was born in the countryside. I was raised on a farm, on a mango farm for the first 4 years of my life. And then when I was 4, my mom moved to the city so that I could go to school. And that decision was a big decision because a lot of her family members didn't agree with it, because it didn't make sense for her as a single mother to move to the city and to a new environment just for me to go to school when there are schools in the countryside where my hometown is. And so my mom did it anyway, and I think that was the catalyst for everything that I have today. And then when I was about to graduate high school, SheCan was another sort of stroke of luck for me, because I actually didn't know about SheCan on my own. Like, I learned about it from a friend. She just briefly mentioned it, like when I was in 11th grade. I was like, oh, when you're gonna graduate, you should apply for SheCan. I didn't know what SheCan was, and even when I was applying, I didn't really know what SheCan is all about. It was just more of like, okay, I need to get a scholarship. I want to go to, like, I want to get higher education, and so I was applying, and then I went through all these stages that Barbara mentioned, and then all of a sudden I was matched with like 5 mentors, and my world just suddenly opened to all these new people, like all these amazing opportunities and all these network. And it was just, to me, it's like a bit crazy, because I never like when I was applying to SheCan, it was just a scholarship to me, but then now it's so much more, because I have many other SheCan scholars who are my friends, who are also leaders, and then I have my mentors, and then the SheCan staff and the organization. So it's just SheCan. My mom opened the door for me, and then now SheCan is sort of like even a bigger support for me to do more when I go home.
And so tell me, you know, had you always, I mean, what's your hope and dream for your future? What is it that you'd like to do as you're in your 2nd year of university here? Do you have a strong sense of what you want to do when you go home, or are you still evolving your thinking and things along those lines?
I would say that I do have a vague idea of what I want to do, but then it's also like I'm also evolving because Dartmouth is a liberal art college, and I feel like I'm constantly pushed to explore new things, and I'm constantly learning more about myself and my interest and my passion. Because I came to Dartmouth with the intention to study environment, and although that is still my passion, I discovered a newfound interest in computer science and digital art. And so right now, if you ask me that questions, my answer would just be I want to go home after and make a positive impact. But I wouldn't know what exactly that means. Although when it comes to computer science, what I do want to do is I want to contribute to the advancement of technology in Cambodia. But specifically, I want to level the technology disparity between urban and rural areas in Cambodia. Because again, I grew up in a rural area, and I see the difference between people who grow up in the city and those who grow up in a rural area, and that it's devastating to see people with so much potential just not have any opportunity to do the things that they want because of where they grew up.
Interesting. And can you maybe just say a little bit about, some of the, we've certainly talked about the mentors and helping you along. Are there other, skills and knowledge that you hope to get as you've been learning more and more about different things? You sort of say, I'd really like to learn more about this or that so that I can be an effective leader when I go home.
I feel like leadership is, although people like my mentor and like Barbara would say, oh, you would consider me a leader because probably Barbara, that was probably the reason why she chose me, but I don't think that is a skill that I that's not a skill that I'm very good at right now. And because I'm surrounded constantly by all these leaders, of course that is a skill that I would love to hone, so that when I go back home I can do things that Barbara is doing, that Karen's doing, they've been doing for decades, so I can do it as good as they are doing it right now.
Okay, great. So Karen, I'm curious, in your role sort of at SheCan and as a mentor here and in a lot of the other work that you've done supporting and protecting women and girls around the world, how do you see what SheCan's work what the work that SheCan does sort of fitting into this bigger global environment for women's equality?
Sure. So, I think if you look at the context for women's leadership around the world, these days it's really mixed data and mixed results. There was a lot of progress being made under the Sustainable Development Goals for years, and then the pandemic hit, and that really had an impact on women's empowerment, women's leadership, women's education, women in poverty, women and girls, everyone in poverty, but particularly women. It varies widely across continents, but the reality is that where there are, despite the fact that there are pockets of progress, and there are women in leadership positions in parliaments, in local government, in companies, it still hovers around the kind of 25 to 30% range. And so, what we do know based on studies is that more women in leadership leads to great outcomes, peace, less poverty, less violence, better environmental outcomes for everyone, not just for women. And so SheCan fits in this ecosystem. It plays a really important role because women's equality and empowerment is really, it's like a pipeline for girls. it's a pipeline that starts from the minute they're born. And then all along that pipeline, there needs to be an ecosystem around every stage, around health, around education, around, place in society, culture, all of these elements of the many, many steps that we all have in life as we progress. Globally, there are a lot of organizations that are doing work to support women and girls across that spectrum and across that pipeline. Some progress is being made, but it's still, there's a huge need for organizations like She Can. And Barbara said that in Rwanda, there are organizations that do what She Can does, but it's not the same. It's not exactly the same. There's, She Can brings this model, which it's not just about bringing people together. It's not just about supporting young women from post-conflict countries. It's actually closer to sort of movement building. It's about giving women from all kinds of backgrounds the opportunity to come together and provide leadership that they can in that moment to each other, to young women. And so Barbara has actually built, there are hundreds of mentors. I don't know the exact number.
500.
There are 500, and she's barely scratched the surface. And that's movement building. Okay. And so it's a model that is effective, that is scalable, and that is still urgently needed, really more than ever.
Barbara, I'm wondering, can you tell us a little bit about some of the other folks who have gone through the program and what they've gone on to do? I'd love to hear a little bit of stories as well.
Yeah, we have a lot of very successful graduates that I'm very proud of. I can't wait to go into my more senior years and just watch them blossom and become change agents. Probably our most, senior, I think they're all successful, but our most senior and most impactful graduate so far is Patricia Uwasi, who graduated from UC Berkeley with an engineering degree in a master's in engineering, and gave the commencement speech and went home. She rose up the ranks in President Kagame's cabinet, and today is the Minister of State. And she's a role model for all of our scholars. We had just had a leadership summit, and she spoke to the scholars, and Pai Pai was just telling us before the call that this was the most impressive. Hearing Patricia was really impressive, right, Pai Pai?
Pai Pai, what did she impart upon you? What were some of the things that you took away from her speech?
One of the things that I took away from her speech was this idea of women empowering women. That was the whole pillar of like her speech. She talks about what she does in her job that open doors for other women. So every time she goes into a room, she would ask if it's all just men. She would ask them like, why is there no women here? And then she does that so often that people almost made it a joke. Like every time she goes into a room, they're like, there are women here. I thought that was that's just very impressive. How much she values women. And there's this thing. There was a scholar who asked her questions about like making changes, because I feel like as new graduate, like if the second we go back home, we just graduated university, and then there's not much that we feel like we can do in our position, and she was worried about the difficulty of that. And Patricia said this just gave a very, very wise answer to that question. So she said that you don't have to do that when you're when you're a fresh graduate, so the thing you do is that you slowly work your way to the top, and then when you're in a position where you can make decision, that's when you make the changes. So you don't have to like immediately become a leader. You don't have to immediately make all these critical changes. Like you can take your time, but as long as you believe in it, then it will happen.
Interesting. So is there, Barbara, is there a bit of a pay it forward kind of notion here with the people who go through the She Can program?
You know, there's an
Or-
expectation of pay it forward, absolutely, but there's no, the policy is that every scholar needs to return home within a year of graduating from undergrad or graduate school and stay for 3 years and work to be a change agent in their country. And we have other successful women that are doing, maybe not quite minister of state in Rwanda, but women who are working in the sustainability field. One of our scholars, Paul Kuhn Out, is working hard for an organization called Energy Lab Cambodia, and they're building clean energy pipelines, convincing governments and organizations to switch to clean energy sources, and she's being promoted and doing extremely well in that regard. We also have a scholar who graduated from Wellesley 2 years ago and went straight home and started working for One Acre Fund, has been promoted a couple times now, manages 6 people, and they're working on things like low-cost healthcare for farmers, many other bringing innovation to Rwanda. We have a scholar, Jocelyn Mazzaro, graduated from Lafayette, who's now working for Partners in Health. I think her official title is surgery research officer. So our scholars are returning home and they're really making a difference, and we're so proud.
And I want to add one thing. Everything that Barb just mentioned is a demonstration of the instincts when you empower and kind of train and mentor young women. They've all stepped into these social impact roles, whether it's social enterprise or the One Acre Fund or nonprofit. But all of these scholars are making personal choices that they don't have to make about driving social change in a positive direction for everybody, not just for women, but for everybody. And they could take a path of becoming leaders in other directions, but they're not. And I think it's just demonstrates what happens when you aim to put more women in leadership.
I can build on that too, if that's okay, Josh.
Yep.
So, colleges give a lot of international scholarships, but they're diffused all over the globe. And when they support a She Can scholar, they're building concentrated leadership. And we all know that when women work together and when they have each other's back and when they know each other, that change happens faster. So we're building pockets of leaders in Rwanda, Cambodia, Guatemala, and Liberia, who together become more powerful because they have each other to network and support each other. So I think that it's not just the individual, but it's about the systemic change that happens when you build up a force of women leaders within a country.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the network, and maybe you could say a little bit more about how do the graduates realize the network and work with each other and support each other, because I've been involved in different things where when there is a network that exists, it's really powerful and you feel like you're part of something much bigger. And Pippa, I don't know if you want to talk about that from your perspective, but it'd be great to hear how seeing these other people who have kind of been where you've been and you can aspire to be what they've become. What's that like, and how do you try to utilize each other?
For me, I think just seeing all these other, specifically Cambodian scholars, go back home and do all these amazing things is definitely very empowering, because it's it's scary, the idea of trying to make change and trying to do all these big things, but the scholars who have been home definitely paved the path for us, and it makes it easier for us to go back and say, oh, you know, she's already done it. There's so many other scholars I know that have already done it, and so it makes it feel more doable, whatever it is that we're all trying to do, whatever change we're trying to make in our country. So that's.
And for people that don't know that much about Cambodia, how difficult is it for women to move into these leadership roles? I mean, in terms of society and things like that.
I feel like today it is still quite a challenge for women to rise up into position of power, especially in the government. But I feel like this new generation, we are working towards it. And with organization like She Can, it's definitely going to keep getting better and better.
I would say, I will jump in and say, in Cambodia, of our countries, Guatemala, I think, especially we focus on Indigenous women, I think that they're very suppressed and have very few opportunities. But Liberia, it's a country that, had the first female head of state who had 2 terms, and women are promoted, and there's still a long way to go. But in Cambodia, it's really hard. I think that our scholars are going to be the pioneers, and they are pioneering this, and they are going to be the leaders that pull up other women. And if change happens, our scholars are going to be some of the top young women, or top women leaders.
I'm curious too, Paipai, you're obviously there are other international students at Dartmouth, but having this sort of support network around you, do you notice a very big difference in your experience as opposed to the other students who are here and maybe don't have that?
Yes, I think, well, the first most obvious difference that I felt between me and a lot of other international students was when I first got here to the US. Many people who grew up here, they have their parents fly in and take them to the dorms with all the supply and stuff, and then a lot of international students would have had to come on their own and then figure it out. But I had 4 mentors who came with me, and they got my dorms like decorated in a day. And so that was the first thing that I noticed, that how the difference between like having a big support behind me, it just makes everything feel easier. Like, although I'm miles away from home, I don't feel as lonely. I feel like it would have been, I don't know how I would have done this. How I would have come to the US on my own without my mentors, without She Can, without all these connections, without all these people, because it would have been terrible. It would have been so lonely, and I would have been so scared. But definitely. And then also in terms of networks and other stuff, I feel like having She Can is such a big advantage, because She Can would offer all these seminars for leadership, and then also for network building, for internships. We have internship trainings, and then they also they also just constantly offer us opportunities, which I feel like a lot of other international students do not have and struggle with. So She Can is definitely such a big part of my life in college right now.
Maybe it's a question for Barbara and Karen, in terms of if you could talk a little bit about some of the philosophy related to leadership that you hope that the participants would absorb. What is effective leadership for you, and what does that look like?
I can take that because, as I said, or mentioned quickly, we just finished a leadership summit where we flew in 47 of our scholars, and there were basically 4 pillars that I think will continue on with, that we wanted to imbue in each one of our potential leaders, so that as they become a leader, they understand the challenges of a leader in the next, let's just say, couple of decades or even century. And so we spent a lot of time talking to them about leadership and sustainability, how the next set of leaders have to understand that the planet needs sustainability, and every decision, whether you're a banker or you work in a sustainability organization or you work for clean energy, you have to be thinking about how we're going to save the planet. And like I said, we do have several scholars who are in environmentalism in Cambodia, and as well as in Rwanda. We only have graduates our oldest graduates are Rwanda and Cambodia. Our first Liberians returned home this summer. And then the second leadership pillar that we're teaching them is that, women, something that Karen and Pai Pai already spoke to, that women have to support women. There's 25% of management worldwide of women. It's going to change when women who have power pull up other women. And so this was what Patrici was talking about. And everyone has to recognize the need to walk into a room and say, why aren't there more women, and mentor more women. We're also imbuing the value. The third pillar is leadership and conscious. You could call it conscious capitalism, but it's, it doesn't matter where you work, but you need to make sure that your organization is taking care of human rights in the work that they do, as well as in taking care of their employees. And then the last one is social justice. Again, taking care of the rights of people and working to make sure that there's equality. So we're trying to imbue those 4 pillars in our potential leaders, so that as they launch their careers, they're bringing the right values to the world.
Karen, anything?
Is that what you were asking about?
Yeah, no, it is. And I mean, I'm curious, and it's great how you're tying these to some of those specifics. And I know, Karen, your background is very much in human rights and social justice, but anything you want to add there as well?
I mean, sure. I think too, just kind of around what Barb said, the leadership qualities that I think we, in different ways, we work with mentees on, but, as part of what Barbara mentioned, and part of it is purpose. So leadership is about purpose. It doesn't matter if you're in the private sector, public sector, government, nonprofit, the best leaders find the purpose, a meaningful purpose that inspires. And that can be, as I said, in a business, in the government, and nonprofit. I would say inclusion, radical inclusion is another. It's tied to this idea of social justice, but it is the idea that we are all in this together, and our fates are tied, to use some cliches. But women's leadership needs men, and it needs boys, and it needs if that is the purpose, women's leadership, we need to bring everyone along with us. It is unifying, inclusive, and not divisive. So I would also talk about, leadership, the leadership attribute of courage, and working with young women about finding their power, about what it means to be courageous, what it means to take a stand, to drive change, to do hard things in the face of challenges. Those are the things that I would add. I know this is a huge conversation, and I know it's the center, a big part of what BayPath does as well.
I love that, Karen. I took notes because we're going to use that next year at leadership. Thank you.
So Barbara, if there are some people here that are listening to this that would be interested in getting involved, like what opportunities are there? And also, I'd be curious, I'd curious a little bit about your funding and where that comes from, and if there are people who, wanted to support that way as well, what does that look like?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Those are two very important questions. So we love to get people involved, and we spend a lot of time hoping, attracting people. And the two best ways to step in is, number one, to become a mentor, like Karen. And we recruit mentors once a year. We start in February, and we recruit teams, and we recruit about 100 a year, and we'll end that in May. And the best way to do that is to reach out. There's information on our website about becoming a mentor, and we'll hold information sessions all throughout February and March for anyone to join. And you can join by bringing your team together, like a team of friends, or we'll match you with a team, kind of like what we did with Karen, which turned out really great. They have a really great team. So you can become a mentor. We also know that it's a 5-year commitment and mentorship, and it comes with $1,000 a year donation for 5 years. And some people just want to help. And so we have a volunteer corps that we call Power to Fly, and you just sign up, and we send you emails regularly about opportunities to help our scholars or help the organization. One of the biggest projects is to help a scholar with a community service project before we've actually accepted her. Remember, I talked about that in the recruiting process, but many different ways that people get involved and help us through just volunteerism. And then in terms of—
Are the community service projects, are those back in their country?
Yeah, so we go to the country and we find, let's say we pick 8 scholars. Before we officially accept them and give them a team of mentors, we ask them to do a community service project, like build a library at their school, or we've had an engineering student build a footbridge over where people were walking through water, or a water pump. And so we'll assign a volunteer, one potential scholar, to help her write a proposal, write a budget, execute her project, all over, Zoom or WhatsApp, and help her execute that as a part of our vetting process. We have a lot of those projects, and then our scholars also. Pai Pai, you did a project at home, right, while you were at Dartmouth?
Make a change.
Make a change. What was your project?
So my Mega Change project was, I went back to my high school, and I basically did a workshop about university application and scholarships, and I talked about how if you want to apply to the US on your own and aren't qualified for SheCan, then I talked about the entire process of how you can do that, and then I introduced them to a couple of scholarships, including SheCan, and I talked about deadlines and what you can do to how to apply to those scholarships, and so basically just higher education and how you can apply for those schools.
And did you have a guide or a coach? Was it a mentor, or was it someone from Power to Fly that helped you with that?
Yes, I had a project mentor.
One of your mentors helped you with that?
Oh, Lisa I also got advice from Lisa. One of my mentors.
Yeah. So we'll have Power to Fly people help the scholars or the candidates with projects like that.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay. So
Wait, let me talk about funding though, because I don't want to skip that one. That's a really important one. We fundraise extensively. Most of our donors are individual donors or family foundations. And a big part of our funding is our annual gala that we have in San Francisco. It's a big party. Last year, we raised $1.3 million through the gala. But we welcome donations at any time. You can, write me or anyone in my staff, and the website are clear ways to give a donation, and we really appreciate all the funds that come in.
Great. We do, so there are a couple of questions. Some of them have been answered around sort of how can people get involved and things like that. There was a question about, are there specific colleges that are in a coalition of some kind with SheCan, or are scholars able to choose where they would like to go?
So we have like I said, we've placed scholars at 30 colleges, but 12 of them hold a scholarship. And so their chances of getting a scholarship at our colleges is about 99%. And if they had their own pick, it would be more like 5%. So we do place the scholars at the schools where we have a relationship with, and we know we're going to get a tuition, room, and board funding. Pi goes to Dartmouth. We have our 12 colleges. I'm not sure I can remember them all, but I'll give it a try. Are Gettysburg, Bucknell, Lafayette, Muhlenberg, University of Portland, University Loyola Chicago. We have Denison. We have Occidental. Am I forgetting any? Karen and Pi, can you remember? Beloit is a big one. But you kind of get it. And then so most of our scholars go to those schools, and then a few of them we have them apply to schools that we have a relationship with, like Dartmouth or Northwestern.
And did you approach those schools about, this endeavor and sort of said, would you like to join us with this? Is that how that happened?
Yeah, so in the beginning, I think I said, I picked 7 women from Rwanda and 4 of them won scholarships. Well, what was happening was the same schools were taking our scholars. They were just applying regular decision. So we went to those that were like Bucknell and Muhlenberg and Lafayette, and we said, you keep taking our scholars every year. And they said, we love your scholars. They're our leaders on campus. Will you make sure that one applies every year? And we said, great, let's sign a contract. You assure that, if she meets the requirements, she'll get tuition, room, and board, and we'll make sure you get one every year. So we have 12 schools. And after a while, we started just branching out, and we've expanded the coalition. And so right now we have 12 colleges that have signed that kind of a contract. Some are 5 years, some are 1 year, some are 3 year. Yeah.
Okay, so let me I'm going to go across the board here and ask you a question I want you to just think about. So maybe you can finish this sentence. In 10 years, SheCan is doing what?
Ooh. Want me to go first?
Sure. Whoever has an answer can jump in.
SheCan is sending home 25 to maybe 50 amazing leaders every year who are creating systemic change in their countries.
Okay. I like it. Karen, maybe?
And in addition to that, SheCan has built on their current mentoring program to include additional post education mentoring. As Pi said, she would like some coaching on leadership, but what they've done is they've helped move those mentors in country or in region, so more mentees are becoming mentors, so that movement building keeps going. And SheCan provides some mentors to some communities in the United States that are particularly challenged.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Pi, we'll give you the last visionary word here.
I would say in 10 years, SheCan is welcoming mentors that were previously SheCan scholars. So I think in 10 years there will be many SheCan scholars who are leaders and successful in their careers, and they're gonna want to pay back and be mentors to new scholars.
Great. Well, it certainly sounds like a bright future. Yes, Barbara, go ahead.
I think we should ask, what about 20 years? Because I think that there's a head of state in our ranks, and I think that that's going to happen, but it might take 20 years.
Okay.
I'm more
All right.
optimistic
Well,
than that.
yeah, less than 20, huh? Okay. Well, listen, this has been great, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share a bit about your terrific organization. Pi, I wish you the best of luck and hope your experience at Dartmouth is great. And I sincerely hope folks who have been listening and tuning in will find a way to support SheCan, because clearly you're doing great work and it's a very worthy endeavor. So keep up the great work, and thanks for joining. Really appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Josh. It was terrific.
All right.
Thanks.
Josh.
Bye.
Hi,
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
It's great. Bye-bye.